Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Getting to the Other Side. Hi, I'm Dr. Eddie Capparucci. It's so good to have you here. And you know what? This is a very unique edition of our program. What we're going to be talking about are the 10 rules for engaging with your grieving partner. But before we dive into any of that, I want to introduce a very special guest that we have. He's a dear friend and colleague. His name is Drew Boa. Drew, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Eddie. I'm super excited.
No, you are. You're always super excited, Drew. Uh, he does. That kid is so contagious. It's just incredible. The other thing I'll tell you about this man is that he's about 6'5". Or did I lose an inch or two on you, or no?
Yeah, I'm a little taller than that.
Even taller than that. Okay. So how tall are you?
I'm about 6'7" or 5'19".
There you go. I mean, well, the first time I ever met him, he came out of this little tiny car that he was in, and I watched him get out of the thing, and I see this guy just going up, and I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, hey Drew, take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience. Tell them about your ministry.
Yeah, I am the founder of Husband Material, husbandmaterial.com, where I help men outgrow pornography. I'm a pastoral sex addiction professional and an inner child recovery specialist, thanks to Eddie. Um, I really believe that freedom from porn and unwanted sexual behavior comes from healing childhood trauma, among other things. But that's really what has made the biggest difference in my life, and so that's why we've got to know each other. And we recently did a conference together where we presented what we're going to do today, and it was really powerful. So I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, it was very, very well received. And yes, Drew, what attracted me to Drew was the idea that he embraces the inner child. He does a lot of work in that area with the men that he worked with. So without further ado, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna walk you through very briefly the 10 rules of engagement. So Tammy, if we could put that up on the screen so people can see what those 10 rules are. And basically, these are the things I've come up with over the years. You know, what should we be doing? Okay. And one is, and I'm just going to run through them now, and we're going to talk more in depth as we go through them one at a time. No explaining. Stop explaining. It's just not a good thing. Two, this is very important. No surprises. There are no surprises during the recovery period. Three, we're looking for validation, not defensiveness. Four, again, a very important thing. This is something we see so often. Do not wilt. Do not allow your emotions to trump their emotions. Instead, learn to become confident. Five, do not let your inner child speak to your partner. That kid should never be talking to your partner. Six, see her pain. Don't see hostility. Don't see anger. Don't see frustration. See her pain. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. Seven, communicate before you go out in public. And again, we'll talk more about it, but what we basically want to do is get a sense of how are we both doing and what will we do if a trigger arises. Eight is walk into the fire. I'm sure most of you have heard me talk about that in the past, but basically what that is be proactive in reaching out to your partner to say, hey, tell me about your pain and what you've been going through lately. Uh, Nine, we're going to talk about your intentions versus your action, because we hear so often, well, I intended to. Well, intentions don't cut it. It's actions that really matter. And then finally, we're going to be talking about the idea of preparing yourself every day to be able to put this stuff together, to put this stuff in action, because, and basically what that is focusing on what is your mission. So what we're going to do now moving forward is Drew and I are going to walk you through these. And for most of them, not all of them, but for many of them, what we're going to do is we're going to role play. So we're going to show you the wrong approach, and then we're going to show you the correct approach. So The first one we're going to be talking about again is no explaining. So this is the wrong approach.
Who are you texting? You have this large grin on your face.
Oh, it's Mandy. You remember Mandy. I worked with her for several years. You met her at the company Christmas party.
You're sitting across the kitchen table from me and texting another woman?
It's not another woman. It's Mandy. You know her.
I thought we had an agreement that you would no longer text women. What happened to that agreement?
This doesn't count. Mandy is an old friend. There's never been anything between us. And she's telling me about her son is now the starting quarterback at their high school football team.
And why should she be telling you that? And why should you care?
Because when we work together, I tell her about our son and his athletic success. So now she's sharing.
Just how often do you text Mandy?
Oh, it's really rare. I mean, maybe every other week.
So you have been texting another woman twice a month and I don't know. And you think that is okay?
It's Mandy.
I don't give a damn if it's Sandy, Candy, or Brandy. You are not supposed to be texting other women. You're violating our agreement. I need you to leave the house for several days.
But it's only Mandy. That's the wrong approach. And I could see, I'm sure you could tell for several reasons. Tammy, jump in for a moment and tell us, why do you think what is the wrong approach that's going on here?
Well, first of all, Drew, you did a very good job of that. But the minimizing, the making the excuses of like, what you already know her, so some gaslighting, but taking the partner's trust and completely invalidating that because you want to text Mandy. It's heartbreaking.
It is. And the other aspect of it, all those are accurate. He's not seeing her pain.
Correct.
He's not seeing where she's coming from. It's more about, like you said, he invalidates it because it's more about what he wants to do versus what is troubling to her.
And he's saying, I didn't mean to do anything wrong.
Right.
But my intentions are good.
Yes, here we go. We're back into attentions already. So,
yeah.
All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to walk you through the correct approach. Now, again, there are many different correct approaches. We can't give all of them to you, but this is one, for example.
Who are you texting? You have this large grin on your face.
It's Mandy. You remember Mandy. I worked with her for several years. You met her at the Christmas party, remember?
You're sitting across the kitchen table from me and texting another woman?
You're right. You're right. We had an agreement that I wasn't going to text any woman without running it by you first. You have every right to be upset and concerned about my behavior. It's completely inappropriate. It violated our agreement. And I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I'll stop texting her.
Well, thank you. What were you thinking in texting her?
Well, it really doesn't matter what I thought because basically it was wrong. However, I thought of Mandy as nothing more than a coworker when we worked together, and I never had any interest in her beyond that. Therefore, I guess she was a safe person to text.
Safe. Do you think I feel safe at this moment?
No, I realize you do not feel safe, and that's because of my lack of judgment. If another form of, again, inappropriate behavior where I didn't stop to consider your feelings regarding the subject. So again, I'm sorry, and it will not happen again.
I need to process this. I cannot begin to tell you how concerned I am right now.
So now what we can see here in that right approach is very different. He comes out, there's no defensiveness that's going on. Okay. He right out of the gate, he's coming out and saying, you know what? Yes, we had an agreement. I broke that agreement. And I understand why you are so upset. So what he does, he sees pain. What about you, Tammy? Anything you see there? You're muted, Tammy.
Doesn't help if I'm speaking
No.
that. I appreciate that you said it won't happen again. that to me would be even, I would appreciate it even more if you said, I will do what I need to today to make sure that I'm not doing that again,
Mm.
rather than just the flat, I mean, because addicts lie to themselves and everyone else. So even with that, just kind of minimal tweak, that would be more comforting to me, that
Mm.
I hear what you're saying,
Right.
and I need to work on this, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that I'm more accountable.
Yeah, very good. The thing is, when we're trying to be, um, we're explaining what we're doing if we're attempting to rationalize. But her amygdala, okay, is in high gear. It just her, as I say, her brain is on fire. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but I could give men a word picture, and hopefully that makes them say, "Oh my gosh, she's really hurting so bad." But to believe that your rational explanation is going to be able to help her is pointless. What you need instead is validate, validate, validate. Again, and after you validate, and we see, the amygdala maybe calm down, then perhaps you can explain some of the points that you need to share. But right now, we just need to keep that at a very low minimum. All right. So let's move over to number two. No surprises. I've seen this happen so many times, and every time a client gets on the on a call, or we meet, and he says, "Oh, you're not going to believe what I did," and then we find out it was about, oh, a surprise. It just it's tough. It's really hard. So anyway, let's look at it. What is the wrong approach if we have attempted to do something to surprise our spouse?
Hey, can you explain this bank statement we received today? It says we have an account with $2,600 in it, but we don't have an account at that bank.
I don't know what that is. It must just be a mistake. Toss it out.
The account has your name on it.
As I said, has to be a mistake. I don't know what it's about.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call the bank and find out what's going on.
No, don't do that. That's a waste of time. The bank made an error. They do it all the time. Just throw it away.
You're lying to me, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Then I'm calling the bank.
Don't. Oh, all right. Yes, yes, yes. I know about the account and I opened it.
Why did you do that? We have an agreement of no hiding money.
I know, but it was a surprise.
A surprise.
Yes, I was going to save enough money to buy another car. You've always been complaining about the car you have. I want to surprise you with another one.
I am supposed to believe that.
It's true. It's true.
You spent thousands of dollars on escorts throughout our marriage, and I find you have a secret bank account where you're putting aside money, and you want me to believe you did it to get me a new car?
That is exactly what it is for.
You're a liar. Get out of this house and find somewhere to live because you don't live here any longer.
But it was supposed to be a surprise. Tell us where we're going wrong on that one, Tammy. I know I'm throwing this at you. You barely had a chance to look at this for what we're
It's
doing.
all
But
good. It's like I was like, the surprise is cringeworthy. You're a liar when you're saying the money is for that. If you really wanted to have a car for her, you would be going, I think it would be really a good financial goal for us to set aside money on a weekly, monthly basis to get you a new car. Do you agree with that? There'd be communication about that, not a surprise account, especially when there's been financial infidelity as part of the entire mix. So,
Right.
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
cringeworthy.
yes, and we don't have a right approach to this. But the right approach is there are no surprises in recovery. Okay, because what does a surprise require? That you keep
Trust.
right, trust, but that you keep a secret.
Just keep a secret. Yeah.
I have to keep a secret. I'm not transparent. And so therefore, what's that gonna do? That's gonna erode trust. And what do women say troubles them more than the sexual betrayer? it's the lying and the lack of transparency. So therefore, if you attempt to surprise her, right, she's going to get triggered. Because again, what it does, that action of keeping something a secret winds up playing into your addiction. This is what you've done before, and you're doing the same behavior now, even though you feel like you can justify it. So again, save the surprises after reconciliation is completed. Okay. All right, let's move on to number 3. We're looking at validation, not defensiveness. And this is going to be the wrong approach.
The tracking device on your phone wasn't working this afternoon. You must have turned it off.
No, I didn't.
You must have. It doesn't turn off by itself.
Well, this time it did.
You are such a liar. You're still in your addiction.
No, I am not. I have not looked at porn in more than 8 months.
Well, you're lying about everything else, so I assume you're lying about not watching porn.
I'm not watching porn, and I'm not lying to you.
Then why did you turn off the tracking device?
I don't know. I am not a tech expert.
You were pretty good at technology when you were hiding your porn watching.
What do you want from me?
I want you to man up and admit you turned off your tracking device. And by the way, where were you that you shouldn't have been?
I wasn't anywhere I should not have been. I was at the office. I stopped by the post office before coming home, and you're making way too big a deal out of all of this.
That is what I said whenever I questioned if you were watching porn.
You know, all I know is I'm not lying, and I got nothing else to say.
So what's new about that?
Tammy, where did I go wrong?
Well, first of all, you turned off your tracking and you didn't give your partner the opportunity to know where you were. You lied to yourself and to your partner about all of this. And then the pushback of like, but so Drew, I feel for you because you're like, this is what I said to myself all along, that there must be something wrong with me. I heard that with what you're saying.
Drew, take that pout off your face, okay?
But yeah, Eddie is, to me,
but let me ask you this.
And defensive.
But Tammy, what if I didn't turn off my tracking device? Okay, if I didn't turn it off, what did I still do wrong here? Looking at my first answer.
You did not validate how. I can understand why that would be hurtful for you or scary for you that you didn't know where I was.
Right. And then maybe even to offer to try to figure out what happened. Let me call and let me see if I can find out the information, and I will get a transcript of if I'm chatting with somebody or whatever to find out what it is, because I don't want that to happen and I don't want you being frustrated. Right?
Yeah. If it really is a glitch and a tech support issue, then you shouldn't need to be defensive.
No, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. You should not need to be defensive because you should be as concerned about what happened as she is. Because you want it to be working. I hope so. I hope you do. If you don't want it to be working, well, then we got other issues that are going on. So let's look at the right approach.
The tracking device on your phone wasn't working this afternoon. You must have turned it off.
I'm sorry that you had experience that my tracking device wasn't working. It must have made you extremely worried.
Yes, it did. But why did you turn it off?
And I could understand that you would believe that I would turn it off because I've done things like this in the past.
Mm-hmm.
However, this time I did not turn it off.
Well, it doesn't turn off by itself.
Exactly. In fact, I've actually heard from several other men in my husband material group that they've experienced similar situations with their tracking devices.
So you expect me to believe you and your addicted friends?
No, I don't expect you to believe me, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the device manufacturer and I'm going to have them provide you with a report where I was this afternoon. And I'm going to ask them to remotely check my phone to determine what the problem is. and I will get an answer to you so that you could see that I did not turn off the phone. Are you okay with that?
I guess so, but it still makes me nervous.
Well, I understand. I do, and I'm sorry that you're in this position that you have to even be concerned about it. But I say thank you for giving me a chance to clear this up. What do you think about that, Tammy?
You were taking responsibility. You were working on solving the issue. You were going to investigate it. You were going to get a report from the manufacturer. So that would be hopeful and helpful for someone who's struggling with the trust. I would
Right.
still be waiting. If I was Drew, I'd be waiting to see the report.
Yes,
But I would, like you said, thank you for giving me a chance to work on clearing this up,
right, right.
So I
Eh,
would be able to do that.
Yeah, and other types of defensiveness that we can engage in include stonewalling, lying, aggressiveness. Because what are we trying to do? We're just trying to shut everything down. We're trying to shut it down. So, and basically, what you're doing with this when you become defensive is you're saying you're wrong. Now, guess what? We've been down this road before. When she questioned at times, what's this about? What's that about? And you came up with all of the excuses to say you're wrong. And she had to just say, okay. She doesn't have to do that now because she knows what's been going on. So again, what are we looking to do here? We need to, again, validate, and also to be curious. In some cases, it may be, if she says, I feel like you've been looking at porn again. Okay, instead of jumping in and just saying, no, I haven't. Instead, what makes you say that? What do you see that I'm not seeing here? Can you explain more to me about what you're going through at this moment? So again, be curious and ask questions so you can get more information about what's going on in the way she's thinking. So therefore, again, you can see the pain. So that's where we always have to go back to. We have to see what the pain is. Okay. All right, let's move on to number 4. Don't wilt. This is a big one. This is one that really troubled me a lot, and more so than me, it troubled so many women out there. So let's look at the wrong approach.
When are you going to tell me the truth about your affair with Matt? I know it was more than what you've been telling me.
I have told you everything.
No, you didn't. I read those texts where you said your feelings for him were growing. You were falling in love with him, weren't you? Answer me.
I don't know what to say.
You don't know what to say? You told him you loved him.
Oh,
No, what?
I never said that.
What did you tell him? I am talking to you. You're a wimp. In moments like this, you disgust me.
So Tammy, what's going on there?
Okay, this one's bringing tears to my eyes because I feel for both of you, like
Yeah.
that you're compressing down, and that you're not getting, Drew, you're not getting any information or answers, and so it's like this, the gap is just growing.
The gap is growing. You're right. You're right. And that's not what it's supposed to be. So we're going to show the right approach to this, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
When are you going to tell me the truth about your affair with Matt?
I've told you everything.
I know it's more than what you've been telling me because I read those texts where you said your feelings for him were growing. You were falling in love with him, weren't you? Answer me.
Yes, yes. At the time, I was falling in love with him.
You never told me that.
You know what? You're right. You're right. I didn't.
You really are a wimp.
I could hear you calling me a wimp, and I could even understand why you'd say that because I've acted like a coward for such a long time. But I believe I'm becoming more courageous, that I believe I'm becoming stronger. And I will say this, that moving forward, I'm committed to telling you the truth always.
Okay. Okay, fine. What really happened with Matt?
Well, basically, it's the same thing that happened with all the other guys. I fell in love with just any man who gave me that affirmation that I always wanted and never got from my dad. Matt would tell me how proud he was of me and when he touched me, and it just melted my heart, just like that. Matt really made me feel like a real man.
Why didn't you tell me?
Tell you what,
Why didn't you tell me how you really felt with Matt?
because I didn't want to hurt you.
What do you mean? I wanted to know.
I thought the details would be too much, and I thought you'd be devastated.
What makes me hurt and get angry is your lack of honesty. But right now, I'm hearing your heart, and I just feel sad for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel sad too. But I know I should have told you everything from the beginning, but I was afraid. And I've let my fear, but I feel like I got my fear under control. And I believe that I really can be honest and not feel rejected. I'm really starting to believe that I can be a good man. I'm broken, but I believe I'm a good man.
I'm glad to hear that. Will you please promise to tell me everything next time I have questions about your past behaviors?
Absolutely. I promise. I'll make sure to ask you how much detail you want to hear.
Thanks.
Okay. What'd you get from
And,
that, Tammy?
and thanks for the clarification on that, because oversharing gory details that traumatize partners is not. So thank you for I will ask you how much detail, and obviously, formal therapeutic disclosure and all that. So setting that aside, but wow, the difference between the gap building and the gap coming closer, and Drew being able to hear, the woundedness, the inner child woundedness, and, and you coming to terms with some of those things. And being able to tolerate, looking at that and being more honest, does that, that's how we grow relationships.
Right, that's exactly right. And so again, you may ask the question, well, confidence, how do I develop confidence in the situation that I'm in? Well, one, to understand what's your real identity. And it's not the addict label. That's not what it should be. To understand that, you know what, you're not a bad person. Yes, you've done some bad things, but not a bad person. And look at your efforts. Look at the effort that you make to get sober, to engage with community and things like that. And also the things that you're learning about yourself. Keep asking yourself those why questions. Why do I think, feel, and act the way I do? I talk a lot about little wins that we get. And I need you to keep track of those little wins, because eventually, and maybe it's the way you dealt with temptation in a positive way, or maybe you uncovered some type of insight about yourself. Those are all really important. Keep track of those, because the more victories you get, the more confident you will feel. Again, confidence is not arrogance, it's not cockiness. All it is that, you know what, I have the strength, I have the energy, I have the commitment to be here with you. I'm not going to pull you through this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be here with you in your pain. That's
Yeah,
what we're looking
the lesson here is don't wilt.
for.
In the
Well,
wrong approach, you could almost see Eddie shrinking and shriveling up into shame.
yeah, right. And therefore, with like building the confidence, we're trying to move away from the toxic shame that we feel. So move to number 5, and I love this one. This is something I came up with, I guess, several months ago. Don't let your inner child speak to your partner. So let's look at the wrong approach.
I still don't believe you're telling me everything. I think you're hiding something.
I understand that, especially since I did that drip disclosure at the beginning.
That was painful.
I can only imagine, and I'm so sorry I did not disclose fully at the beginning. It probably would have saved you a lot of heartache.
Yeah, but you didn't. You lie over and over to me, and I feel like a fool.
Well, I wasn't brave enough to disclose everything, but I never wanted to make you feel that way. It was an awful thing to do.
I will never believe you again. You're a liar, and I will never trust you again. You're a coward, and you cannot own what you did, and my life will never be the same. Our lives are ruined, all because you couldn't keep that little thing in your pants. You know what? I hope she enjoyed it because I never did.
So now what has happened is the guy started out very well. Here enters the inner child after that little tirade. Then what the hell are we doing here? You already made up your mind that you're never going to trust. You said I ruined your life. So why are you here? Why am I here? Screw this. I don't need to listen to this anymore. Oh, and by the way, yes, she enjoyed it very much. Ouch. Ouch. Now, again, that was an over exaggeration of the inner child. Okay. I mean, it usually doesn't get that extreme, but it's there. Whatever you find, your mood changes, whatever you find that you're starting to feel more aggressive, whatever you want to start to butt head, the inner child has come out. What did you think of that, Tammy? I saw you
Words
cringing.
hurt. I did. Words
I saw you
hurt.
cringe.
But both
Yeah.
of you, like, it was hurtful, and I get it from the wounded, standpoint, but man, like, those are biting, and you can't pull them back in. It's hard to work through, both sides of that.
And you know what's really interesting about what you're saying right now? Is that there are many women who have been betrayed. And again, we know men get betrayed too, right? But we keep it here with women right now. That after all of this has been playing out, that they sometimes start to look back at this and they start to say, that's not me. That's not me. I'm not like that. I wouldn't talk to somebody that way. I would never say something like that. And again, that's the trauma that's playing out. And they don't like themselves because of it. They don't like it. And that's why you've seen me. I've advocated on this program several times that said, you know what, ladies, at some point, we got to start to rein it in. Because again, you keep taking out that sledgehammer and whacking him with it, you're not going to have much of a man left after all is said and done. And what
But
are you looking to do? Go ahead, jump in.
Well, but I was gonna say, but that's why we on Seeking Integrity have safe places that you can air that and get support and help.
Yeah.
We've got betrayed partner drop-in groups. You can go and go, I can't believe you did, without it causing the hurt within the relationship. And it's so that I hear that all the time too, what you're saying, Dr. Eddie, about I've become this raging person that isn't me, and that's not who they want to be. And we have resources and help that can help them find places for that, so that it doesn't have to create more problems within the relation. You got enough to deal with within the relationship as it is.
Yeah, and again, we know some of it's going to come out. It is, again, but when it's constant and it's for such an extended period of time, and again, we got to add in, if he's doing his work, if he's moving in the right direction, if he is, then we have to figure, like I said, we have to try to rein that stuff in. So, Drew, let's look at the right approach. So here it is. What we're going to do is we're going to be trying to stay calm, see her pain, and let's look at that last dialogue again and how do we handle it the right way. And I'll start off. I wasn't brave enough to disclose everything. So I never wanted to make you feel that way. It was an awful thing to do.
And I'll never believe you again. You're a liar, and I'll never trust you again. You're actually a coward, and you still cannot own what you did. My life will never be the same. Our lives are ruined, all because you couldn't keep that little thing in your pants. I hope she enjoyed it because I never did.
So now the inner child could be coming in here. I want to keep him out. So what do? It's apparent that you're extremely triggered tonight. So I'm going to take a 15-minute break, and then I'm going to come back to see if we can continue to talk in a productive way.
That's right. Run away. Don't bother coming back.
Well, I am going to come back. I'm going to be back, and I'm going to come back because I want to come back. So again, you know me, you know my approach. I don't ask for timeout. we just take a timeout. But again, we got to come back and we have to tell them that. So this is huge. This is huge with the inner child, because again, the kid wants nothing but comfort. So when Drew was sitting there and just throwing all those barbs at me, it became very overwhelming for my kid. And he doesn't understand it. But see, I have to be able to understand it. And I have to understand what? The pain. The pain. Because the little kid, he's going back to something that happened when he was younger, when he heard things like that. And he's not associating that with someone else's pain. He's associating it just with his pain. So you need to understand, that your inner child, lack that understanding, that compassion, the empathy and the grace that's needed to talk to our partner.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's important to make a distinction between talking about the inner child and talking as the inner child. So earlier, when Eddie was opening up about having that lack of affirmation from his father, he was speaking for his inner child, and it was really connecting. That's different than what just happened, where it's easy to speak as the inner child, and that's what we don't want to do.
Right. Real fast, I'll tell you about a client I spoke to just several weeks ago. And his wife had accused him of doing something he didn't do, and he had a meltdown with her. The kid came out. Well, later on, he started thinking about it, and it took him back to a memory he had not had in like over 25 years. And when he was about 11, his father accused him of taking money from his wallet, which he didn't do. So therefore, now in this circumstance, when he had the meltdown, okay, it's not just him and his wife and the inner child that's in the room, his father's in the room too. And we got to kick these people out of the room. It should be just the two of you, and that's it. That's all we need. All right, let's continue to move on. This one, we don't have a role play for it. Again, this is about see her pain. And again, this is why things go wrong. This is why the dialogue gets off track, because the inability to see the pain leads you to wind up focusing on yourself. Again, that's what your inner child does. Your inner child, self-focused, only wants comfort. So the fact that you feel like you're being treated unfairly, or she doesn't understand the circumstances, now think about what I just talked about. That sounds like a child, doesn't it? You don't understand. This isn't fair, right? That's because, again, your inner child running the show, and we have to take that out of there, because your inner child doesn't give a damn about her pain. Your inner child only cares about his comfort. And then again, that doesn't make him a bad child. It makes him a scared child. He's afraid. He's afraid there's nobody there to protect me. And that's why you have to sit there and say, no, I can handle this. I can handle this. You don't have to be afraid. So seeing her pain, probably the most important thing you can do when she becomes triggered. Cameron, you got anything to add to that?
I think what you exactly said, and being able to be present. I'm being intentional about paying attention here, not escaping into inner child or my feelings or whatever. It's just focusing and holding the space. You've talked about it before too, Dr. Eddy, of like, you have to be willing to step into that space and you not get distracted by the inner child and wait, it's not fair. I was like, yeah, I can have a little tantrum about that.
You got something to add, Drew?
Yeah, it's almost like we have to do a little translate.
What do you mean?
Oh, she's yelling at me. Translate her pain. Oh, she's accusing me of something I didn't do. Translate. See her pain.
Yeah.
We have to see beyond the surface level.
Yes, right. And let's face it, okay? It's not always easy. You're in the trenches and you're getting this stuff thrown at you. But that's going to bring us down to the last point I have that we're going to talk about, it being prepared. But yeah, we're not saying all this is easy, folks. Okay, but you can do this. You can do it especially if you commit to doing it. And sometimes, even if you don't do it right to begin with, if you catch yourself and then change course, to me, that is one of the biggest signs, I think, of growth. Oh, the guy's getting it. He's getting it. Because even though he messes up, like even I mess up, okay, I mess up. But it's like, I catch myself and then do an autocorrect. So, all right. So number 7, communicate when going out in public. Now, again, the wrong approach is just very simple. I'll describe it to you. That is, we don't say anything to each other before we go out in public. And so therefore, she wondering if he's going to be triggered. He wondering, is she going to be triggered? And so now with that, if you think about it, that could wind up causing people to get triggered because you're already anxious. You're already anxious. I had one client who said that he would go into a store with his wife and would look around to see were there any type of women that were there that would trigger her. Now, can you imagine what's going on in her head if she's watching him scout around the store? Okay, so therefore, again, we need to have that communication. So let's show you what would be the right way. How do we communicate before we go out in public?
Hey, are you almost ready to go?
Yes, I am. But before we leave, I want to just let you know I'm in a good place.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it means that I'm in a good place when it comes to my recovery. I feel very mindful. I feel real focused. And you really don't have to worry about my eyes wandering when we're out about. I'll be very focused on you.
How is it that you're so certain you won't get triggered when we're out and about?
That's a good question. The answer is that I've learned that when I'm in public, I have to focus on my mission.
What do you mean by your mission?
Well, it means that I'm going to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish. If I head out to fill the car with gas, that's my mission. I focus all my attention on what I'm doing and just that. I ignore any person I see along the way. Now, today we're heading to the beach, and my mission is for us to enjoy ourselves, to read my book, focus on you, and to ensure that you feel comfortable.
Well, I'm not sure how comfortable I'm going to be.
Well, that's another subject. Because if at any time you begin to feel uncomfortable or become triggered, please let me know. And then we can make changes. Whether we maybe move to another location, maybe we take a break and go for a walk, or maybe we leave and we come home. I'm okay with anything that's going to help you feel triggered, comfortable.
I appreciate that, but how will I know if you're triggered?
Well, I really do feel very confident that's not going to happen, but I promise that if I do get triggered, I'm going to tell you, and then we can decide how to proceed. How's that sound?
I think it sounds okay. I appreciate you talking with me before we head out.
All right. Tammy, what are you thinking there?
I love that because you've discussed aspects of it and you've also set it up for, I want you to tell me. I don't want you, my partner, to, hold it to yourself or feel reactive. And we're going to adapt. If we need to leave, we're going to leave. If we need to go for a walk, if we need to adjust something, if not just sharing it with me is okay, then we're going to do something different. And wow, that would make me feel like you're paying attention to setting this up to have it be like we could maybe go to the beach and have a good time and not be constantly worried about all the triggers.
Yeah, we see there's so much trouble here because, again, women, rightfully so, go out in public and in a way they think almost every woman out there is a threat because they're thinking that the eyes are going to be wandering over. And like I said, I could understand that. But again, and then what you get the guy who's like, what? I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you doing it? Again, it sounds like a kid, doesn't it? But that's what happened. And again, not seeing the pain, instead trying to defend yourself. So again, let's go back to that last rule of engagement. See her pain. Okay, because when she gets upset, all right, out there, that she's in pain. So, here with this one again, it is just taking the time, trying to, are we both in a good place? Or if maybe one of us isn't in a good place. So then maybe, do we want to be going there today? Do we want to go do something else? Right? We need to be able to adapt to what circumstances are.
Yeah, and notice whether she is having an amygdala reaction that's really fired up, or maybe also shutting down and withdrawing.
Very good point, Drew. A very good point. It could be one or the other that's
Yeah.
going on. But then again, that's the idea of attunement. Are you aligned with her? Are you picking up what the signs are there? So now we're going to move to walking into the fire. Again, most of you people probably know, but for those of you who don't, concept I came up with years ago, which basically is you proactively approach your partner when things seem rather calm to say, hey, things are calm, but I know you're still hurting. You want to talk about it? And I know whenever I tell this to men the first time, they look at me like, what are you, an idiot? You're either an idiot or you're a sadist. I don't know which one you are. But the key, the point is here is that you're saying a lot of really positive things. One, you're saying, I don't want to pull you through your recovery. Two, I'm here for you. I could be here for you, you know? And three is, you know what? I am making a commitment to you. So all of those things are being communicated. Now, at that moment, you may not get, a whole lot of praise for what you've done, because I call it walking into fire, because there's a good chance you're going to get burnt and she's going to get upset. However, in most cases, usually whether it's later on or the next day, most spouses will come back and say, hey, you know what? I really appreciate that you came to talk to me. Because again, let's face it, most guys, things are quiet. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Leave it alone. Not the right way to handle it. So let's look at the correct approach. How do you walk into the fire? So, over the last few days, you seem very relaxed, and I'm very glad to see that. But I was wondering, what have you been thinking about, and have you been feeling anything about the pain that I might have caused you? Have you been troubled by it?
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
Well, I'm asking if you'd like to talk about the pain I caused you.
Wow, this is surprising. Normally, it seems like you can't get away from me fast enough when I want to talk about my pain.
Well, unfortunately, you're right. And I apologize for that. You need to have opportunities to discuss what you're experiencing. And I hope that I'm going to be able to do a better job with that moving forward.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, we can talk. Although I've not shown much in the way of emotional pain over the past several days, it has weighed on my mind. It always seems to be there.
That's what I thought. So tell me, what have you been experiencing lately?
Basically, it's the same stuff. The question surrounding why you did this to us and will I ever be able to trust you again? There's just this discomfort that seems to never go away.
I'm really sorry that you have to go through that emotional pain. I've tried to tell you what I've been learning about myself and why I've acted out for the last few years. Would you like me to try to explain it to you again? So that's what we would do. Something along there. Again, what we're doing, we're coming across, showing that we care and showing that we're thoughtful. So Tammy, what do you think? I know you're very familiar with the walking into the fire approach. What do you
Yeah,
think
well,
about it?
and I think it's really important when things are calm, because trying to, to have conversations of any kind of meaning when things are all heated up, nobody's using their executive brains on that. So I think just acknowledging that, as Drew shared, like it's always there. It's kind of that ever present, and acknowledging that, yes, I see that you're calmer, but I suspect that there's more there. That being to me, that's attunement. Like I'm trying to attune to you. I don't have it all together. I'm asking questions because I'm trying. And again, I talked about that gap before, and I see you reaching out, Eddie, to try to help close that gap, which is really important.
Yes. Okay, we have one more role play to do. This is intention versus action. So let's look at the wrong approach.
You don't get it, do you?
Get what?
The importance of keeping me safe.
How am I not keeping you safe?
I just checked your phone this morning and I saw you've been texting Carter.
So what's wrong with that?
Really? You don't see anything wrong with texting one of the men you used to have sex with?
That was years ago, before I even met Carter. And Carter and I are friends right now. And he he's not my type. I don't see what the problem is. Why do you continue to check my phone? I've not been doing anything wrong. Why do you continue to violate my privacy?
Any man who has been cheating on his wife for years with strange men does not deserve any privacy.
Well, I completely disagree with that.
You disagree with what?
I disagree that I don't deserve privacy. Privacy is important for my recovery. And Carter's part of my recovery group. I need a safe place where I can share.
How did you manage to make this about you? We were talking about keeping me safe, not you.
I'm sorry. I have every intention of keeping you safe. I didn't mean to trigger you. Don't you think it's important for me to have healthy connection with men so that I can stay sober? Doesn't that keep you safe?
I'm telling you that I cannot believe you would even consider getting close to anyone you've ever had sex with. And now you tell me you want privacy with Carter of all people? It's like I don't even cross your mind. I'm just not important enough to you.
Now, that's not true. You're important, and I want you to feel safe, but I need to be supported too. And these guys are really good for me. Like I said, I'm just trying to stay sober.
Well, clearly, your recovery is a priority, but mine is not. If you truly cared about keeping me safe, you would take out your phone right now, delete Carter's number, and email the group leader saying you have to drop out.
You're not being reasonable.
Reasonable. Was it reasonable for you to have spent our entire marriage engaged in a secret life where you were soliciting sex from other men? Was that reasonable?
There you go, shaming me again. So what'd you get there, Tammy?
Oh my gosh. Blame shifting, delusional thinking, lying to yourself, and trying to tell Drew that, no, they're all part of my safe recovery. Like, wow, you masterful delusional thinking and blame shifting. And sadly, and I hear this stuff all the time, you know that too, but that, like, oh, it's part of my recovery. He's part of my safe recovery community. Like, oh, my mind is spinning.
Yeah, I had a client who one of his closest friends he had a liaison with, and and he wanted to maintain that friendship. Doesn't work. What are you gonna say, Drew?
So either he is extremely aware of his impact and intentionally manipulating, or he's extremely unaware of his impact.
Yeah, but either way, it's not good. And either way, again, it comes down to the idea of intention. So, well, my intention is just to be part of this group. My intention is to, make sure I'm, have the support team I need. But you're not looking at what the actions are. The actions are causing pain. And they're causing more doubt. They're causing more. They're actually what they're doing. They're pulling you further away as a couple, as opposed to moving you forward.
And so the lesson here is that we need to take ownership of our impact. We need to take ownership of the impact of our actions, regardless of the intention.
Right. Exactly.
Even if the intention really was good.
Right. Even if the intention was good, it's the action that really matters.
Yeah.
So,
And the privacy, you brought up the privacy, like, I deserve privacy. And I hear that all the time. My recovery is private, and that will not build trust. That will not close the gap.
no. And it's also, if you think about it, he was distracting. from the conversation. He was making it about something else than where he was. So, all right. So the last thing we're going to talk about here is preparation. Again, if you wait, as you went through these different scenarios, if you wait until you get into the trenches, you most likely are not going to handle it well. So what you need to be doing is starting to prepare yourself for what this will be. So for me, what I've asked my clients to do is, you know what? You understand the dynamics of the relationship and what goes on during those times when she's triggered. Sit down and start writing out, okay, where does it start to go wrong? And then what can I do to keep it back on track? Now, again, the things you can look at is the idea that one, I can see her pain. Okay. Two, the fact I need to slow things down. One, I got to work on my compulsive behavior because let's face it, that's what this is. When you start going south on her, whether it's wilting, whether it's defensiveness, whether it's explaining, you are just into your compulsive behaviors. That is very identical to your addiction. Why have the compulsiveness? Why have it come up? It come up because your anxiousness has risen. Your anxiety is higher. You need to get that anxiety back under control. And you need to be able to practice that, not when you're in the trenches, but before. And that's why I tell people to meditate, to do meditation every day, to do it religiously. But start with 5 minutes, work your way up so that I can learn to be still. Because this way, when my anxiety starts to rise, I know, you know what, I can go to that place where I can lower everything. I can lower my heart rate. I can lower my blood pressure. I can lower my tension so that I can stay there and see the pain. Because once that anxiety starts to percolate, you're going to get thrown off course. So again, need you to sit and start to prepare. How am I going to be in the trenches that day? The other thing you need to be doing, and I would like you to see you do this every day in the morning. Start the morning with, you know what? Okay, one, remind myself my partner's in pain. Two, am I going to control my compulsive behaviors or am I going to let my kid in and talk to her? Three, the fact I want to honor my partner. I want to honor my family. I want to honor God. Four, what's my legacy? What do I want it to be? All right. When my wife starts to grieve, how am I going to handle that? What am I going to do? You need to go through all of these. Again, you take 5 minutes because what you're doing is you're practicing, practice, 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 so that when you get in the trenches and you're there, you will be in a better place to be able to handle it. Are you going to get it right all the time? No, you're not. We don't. None of us get it right all the time. But what happens, hopefully, is you can catch yourself and you can bring yourself back to that place where we can wind up trying to have a more rational dialogue. So that's all I got for you, Tammy. That's what all Drew and I have.
That's a lot, both of you. It was great. And we've got a couple of questions and more comments. So I think I'm going to start with, we'll start, the first one is a question. It got posted before you did the role play. So is it possible to erase an unwanted arousal template? I'm 65-year-old sex addict trying to become emotionally and spiritually mature, recognizing that my maturity was likely stunted as a teen when I began looking at pornography and by a mother who was loving but verbally and physically abusive during my younger years. I'm concerned that I will never overcome my unwanted arousal template, which includes girls as young as 9 years old. Also, my wife is wondering why my CSAT has not explored my arousal template with me. In her words, if you don't get to the underlying why, won't you just be white knuckling your way through addiction? So that's a complex question.
It is a complex question. And one, I think your CSAT need to be diving into this. I would imagine that you have this under control. I hope you have it under control, because if you don't have it under control, you're opening yourself up for a lot of potential legal issues, and not to mention someone that you could wind up hurting. Um, and even if it's child porn, you're the victims. You're still you're still as guilty as the people who violated them. And again, I'm not here to shame you. That's not what we're doing here. But the idea is you need to the way we adjust our arousal template. And again, I'm of the belief, and I think different therapists are going to tell you different things. I don't think it ever fully goes away, but you can definitely have a lot of control over it. You can manage it extremely well where it doesn't, cause you issues at all, which means that if a thought comes into your head, what are you going to do with that? You're going to grab it, remove it, put something good into your mind with that. But the thing is, we can desensitize. How do you desensitize? That is through the talk therapy with your CSAT. So if your CSAT is not aware of what your arousal template is, make sure he knows. If he knows and he doesn't want to do anything with it, go find another CSAT. You need to go in and do the work. Drew, what do you got, Drew?
Yes. And I want to say you're asking the right question. Why?
Yes.
That's the right question. Because ultimately, unwanted arousal usually does not begin when we're adults. It starts when we're young. So engaging with that inner child is going to help that arousal template make a lot more sense, and it will become less magical and more manageable.
Yes. I mean, you got to go back and got to do the work about the mom, what was here, because that's his pain point. So good point, Drew.
So, and Dr. Rob talks about, dialing down the volume, and,
Mhm.
so you don't change the arousal template, but you can dial down the volume so that you aren't acting out on it. And, to me, why is interesting, but I know lots of people that, but it's how do I, address this? And I think identifying my wounded inner child, is a problem and is coming into play. So how I nurture my inner child, how I adult my inner child, can help me, even if we can have discoveries and more learning,
Mhm.
throughout our, recovery journey. And I agree with Dr. Eddie. If your CSAT, well, first of all, if you've been withholding information, go to your CSAT. If your CSAT knows this and hasn't been exploring that, and you've been working with that person for a while, then perhaps it is time for a change. But I would ask your CSAT, how do we,
Mhm.
work through this?
Right.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Hey, let's go to Ty. Go to Ty's
Oh,
question.
okay. Well, I'm going to read the comment too.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
a question. I just want to say that I'm loving this way of explaining situations because it makes my ADHD understand it properly. Thank you. So we're
You're
not going to
welcome.
skip. How do you
Okay.
validate when it's not true, but when they're telling you to admit it's true? I get this a lot. So
Great
I'll,
question. Great question. What we're going to do is we first and foremost never, ever, ever admit to anything that is not true. I've seen it happen. It becomes a disaster because then you're asked to follow up with details, and you're never going to, and the details you give, and later you come back to it 2 weeks later and they want the details again, they're never going to match up because you're making it up. You never do that. But you validate again about the idea, like, I understand you're feeling that way, understand they're hurt, I see it, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're feeling that way. However, one second, Drew. Well, the other thing about this, though, you don't to sit there at that time and try to correct. It's going to be very hard. You come back after everything calms down and say, "Hey, I want to talk to you about one of the points you brought up because we're not on the same page here." And that's when you can do that. Go ahead, Drew.
Even if what you're being accused of is not true, what you were accused of previously was true.
Yeah.
And so you can validate that based on what I've done in the past, it makes complete sense that this is something that I might do.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
you can still validate that the result of my actions put you in this position, and that is my responsibility.
Right. Right. But again, if you're going to try to get into the explaining at that point, you're probably just going to hit a wall, come back later after things have calmed down.
So the next is a comment. Yes, that's a man owning his past, his present, and focus on the man of integrity he may be in the future. Men in recovery versus completely different than those who are conversely than those who are not. If I say something like, I'll not do that again, would sound like a promise to my partner. And if I break it because I forgot my promise, she would be triggered, but it was a nice explanation. So I think I will take care of myself to do, I hear you, I'm going to take care of myself to do my best to not do that again. Thoughts?
Well, the thing I don't like, first, I guess this, how do you forget what you promised? And I'm not being facetious. I go back to what I promised. I didn't forget those promises. I remember those promises now more than 25 years later. You know why? They were important to me. They were important. They meant something. So how do I forget a promise? So that's part of a disconnect that I have with that. The other idea, well, I'll try not to do it, seems so wishy-washy to me. If I was on the other side and I was getting that, I mean, no, you're not gonna try. You need to do it. This is what I need from you. So anyway, that's
Well, to me, it's a little bit of, I'm going to do what I'm not, I don't promise. I've been in recovery for decades. I still don't say I'll never do that again. I say, I'm going to do what I need to do today to make sure that I don't do that today. And I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow. So it's action.
But that's a
I'm not
promise
just
that you
trying.
made.
It is, but I'm doing it for today.
Right. One
but
day
not
at a
forever.
time.
Yes.
1 day at a time. Right.
Yes. Yeah,
But
okay.
again, that's still making that commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, as a partner telling me this happens to other addicts in my group sounds like justification. So yeah, like, and then the next one, not a question, but I can tell when my phone tracker doesn't work. As I always tell my wife, there's an issue or problem with accountability software in advance.
Good for you.
Have you guys had that? I mean, is that a real thing? I've not heard of that with the tracker stuff.
Oh, that all of a sudden it doesn't work, or that they tell you that you are, on the other side of town and you're not, you're over here. Yeah, there's sometimes they just go bonkers. So, but if you call, they will be able to provide, a whole detailed plan. You were here, and here. So, but yes, we've seen it.
So here's the next one for you guys. How do you respond to men that take you saying confidence to a place of bragging and defending how great they are doing to their spouse?
What do you say, Drew?
You used the language of, I am becoming more courageous.
Yeah.
Not, I have arrived and now I'm awesome. I'm growing, I'm learning, and that's not bragging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an interesting concept, and so we've seen this play out forever. That the man, if he put the effort in, he put the work in, he is going to move forward so much quicker than the betrayed spouse is going to. But the thing is, sometimes what happens is they are so excited by what they're learning about themselves and the changes that they're making. They're almost kind of giddy about it, and they want to share it, and they want to, boast about it. And I like tell them all the time, I go, no, you have to kind of keep that under wrap. I mean, what you want to talk about, and what I mean by under wrap is the excitement aspect. Yes, definitely share what you're learning about yourself, no doubt. But you don't have to be sitting there saying, give me a high five. No, that's not. Remember, you're doing great. They're still believing.
Yeah.
So I know we said we're 10 extra minutes. Are you guys okay with staying out a bit longer?
I could stay a little bit longer. You, Drew?
Okay, let's keep going. This is a sad comment. I'm struggling with my essay when he recoils into his cover my ass safe coward zone addict behavior. All I see is a widening gap between us and my wanting to just give up and run away, work my recovery and heal myself, not thinking about him for another day. The other part of me just feels like I'm investing in something not worth my energy, beneath what I deserve in a partner. Overwhelming futility, waste of my life, waste of my love, sucking the oxygen out of me as always has been. Sad.
It's sad. So I mean, yeah, you know, you have to wonder again. I don't know how long this has been going on and what work either of you have done. I would imagine you've done work based on this, but yeah. I mean, at some point you have to ask yourself, you know, how much more effort and energy do I put into all of this, especially if I feel like I'm doing more than he is. And again, so this is soul searching for you. The boundary, where the boundaries that you have. So, I mean, I'd be sitting down with your counselor, hopefully you have one, to just kind of walk through and say, let's evaluate the landscape. Let's look at everything that's been going on and let them make a determination to, again, what do we give it one more shot? What is it that he needs to demonstrate? This is what I need from you. Are you going to be able to deliver to me or not?
Next one, I can see myself being defensive at the beginning of recovery. After 2 years in recovery, I find this so validating that I'm working on empathy for my wife and I can hold space on difficult moments. Thank you, Eddie, for helping me walk through this.
You're welcome.
Next one, my partner has left me because of my unfaithfulness and addiction, though we tried for over a year to repair the relationship after the first infidelity. How do I continue to grow in my ability to have these conversations now that I am a single man?
No, Drew, what do you think about that? He's now a single man. How did he continue to do his recovery?
These skills that we're talking about today, validation, owning your impact, not wilting, apply to any relationship and any friendship. If you want to be a great friend, if you want to be a great parent, really in any role, these skills are going to benefit any relationship and you can practice. In fact, that's something that I often do with men in support groups is we practice entering into each other's pain with curiosity and compassion. And so you can do this as a single man.
I fully agree with him 100%. Great answer.
And I agree too. So, and then the next is a twofer. So I know I'm not a sinner, I'm an addict, but my wife doesn't necessarily believe that. How does she learn that? Just from my living amends ? And is there a situation where she needs to be reined in? It's not going to be me that does that. How can that happen?
Rein her in?
I know, I was like, yikes.
Yeah, Harvey, we got to be a little cautious with our, you know, our
I think
words
he was referring to your comment earlier,
that,
the partners who might need to rein it in sometimes.
hmm. Oh, I see. Okay.
That
Oh,
would
I
make
see. Is
sense.
there a
Thank you, Drew.
situation? Thank you. Okay. Where she need to, I thought he was talking about rein her
It's
in
a
about
situation, not
the other thing.
her.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
So what your wife is saying that you are a sinner and you're not an addict. Well, I think we're all sinners. So, you know, that again, that's just my personal belief with that. Um, I think, you know what, arguing that point with her, I'm not sure what that winds up buying you. I think what it's about is again, what are you doing to live your amends? And are you showing that to her? And my guess is even if you're doing it, it's not taking hold for some reason. And I think that's where you need to put your emphasis and your focus on, okay, I'm trying to demonstrate that I've changed and I'm doing things to help you, but obviously that's not working. Can you tell me what is wrong about my approach and what is it that you may need from me moving forward? That's where I would go with that.
So the next one is just a comment. Great session. Thank you to all three of us. I saw myself in the incorrect versions, almost like looking at a mirror. So thank you for doing a great job of demonstrating that.
Welcome.
If the betrayer did act out exclusively with men, how does he build community with other men in 12-step or recovery groups? How do I handle the need for him to have male fellows in recovery and my fear of him acting out again?
No, Drew, you do a lot of recovery groups with that, and what I could understand the concern that she may have.
Yes. Well, let's start with not joining groups where your previous partners are also members.
That's true. Definitely.
That's the situation we acted out in the role play. I mean, you have to find out what is going to keep this safe. In general, I find that rather than having like an accountability partner relationship, which is just one-on-one, it can be helpful to have a triad where it's 3 men, and that can boost safety rather than maybe more of a high risk scenario where there's a lot of emotional intimacy one-on-one. And in general, if you can get a sense from the leader of the group about any safety precautions they have in place, and commitments they have to how they handle risks and threats, then that might be able to help.
Yeah, I think that's all really good stuff there.
Like, yeah,
Go ahead.
like for example, does this group or program have a policy in regards to what happens when there's inappropriate behavior between members? Some groups are more lenient, and I would not trust that as much. I would want there to be a group where there's a very strict policy of not allowing men who have been inappropriate together to continue in the group.
Right.
But with 12-step, there's no leader. So I mean, so it's like with 12-step, it's a little different. It's all peer. You know, with other groups, there is, you know, a facilitator or group leader. So it would be situational. But I
Right,
love
it
what
would
you're
be,
saying
but I
about the triad
still,
too.
right, but I still think even in those situational thing, that the betrayer need to be able to communicate, as Drew said, to the betrayed, what makes this group safe.
Mhm.
What has been put in place that will help to reduce her anxiety over it. So yeah, that's what. And if he's like, well, I don't know, that's not going to be a good enough answer. You need to go and find out. And in those groups where there is a leader, fine. Where those groups where they're not a leader, what is the group itself doing to, be able to hold itself accountable?
And for the man who's in that position, listen to your gut. If something feels off, if something feels icky, don't ignore that. Pay attention to it.
That's a very good point. Good point.
Okay, a couple more questions. What do I
Okay.
do when my wife is listening to something and I feel like we need to connect so I don't avoid, but she has asked me not to, or she has asked not to be interrupted when she is listening. Sometimes it goes on for a while and I don't know when to try to connect. I'm afraid by the time it's good, either she'll be hurt because I didn't bring it up or life will get in the way.
Well, I think you have to have more of an overall conversation again before she's listening to something to talk about this subject in general. So, you know what? There are times I feel like I need to talk to you about something, but I don't want to interrupt you when you're there. However, I don't want to lose that time where we could connect. So what would you recommend? Again, be curious to get her input versus you just trying to come up with the solution on your own. So again, I think you have to have that dialogue about the scenario, what's going on, and then come up with that solution together.
The next one I hear a lot. How do I get my betrayed spouse to see her name calling and character descriptions of me are harmful? It's been a year and they are still as strong and barbed as at the beginning. Or do I just take it?
You do not just take it. Remember what we said in one of our things, time out, time out. I'm sorry, but you know what? I know I've hurt you. I know I've caused you great pain. However, what's going on now, is not going to help us. There's nothing to be gained from any of this. I'm going to go take a break. I'm going to try to just regain my composure and I will come back and check on you and to see if we can carry on this. You do not have to take abuse. And I'm talking about mental, emotional, and physical. Physical. People, keep your hand to yourself. All right. I've seen good people who've been, sent to jail. Okay. Okay. We got women who are sitting in a prison cell, a jail cell, because their trauma has gone off the rails. And you think about it, you know what? Never thought they'd ever be there. That I'd ever be there. That I have to go stand in front of a court, in front of a judge, to be able to plead, guilty, not guilty, whatever, to an assault charge. I've seen it. It is awful. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. You need to try to bring some of that, anxiety down so that we don't become so contemptuous. I don't know. You have anything to add, Drew?
I don't.
Okay.
Other than we need to prepare ourselves every morning and claim those truths that I am beloved, so that when someone's calling me names,
Yeah, it
I've
doesn't
already
define
been.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't define you. Okay.
No, and I think I think part of it is this is not going to help our relationship, and so, but Drew, you did a great job of belittling and minimizing with harsh words, when you were acting that out. So, okay, so
It
2 more,
hurt so
and we're
much.
way past time.
Yes.
What about my partner saying I intentionally abused her by not agreeing with her false reality?
Well, again, we go back to what we've talked about before. We're not going to agree with anything that is not true and false. Again, you just need to be able to, that you pointed out before, validate. You know what? I'm sorry that I put you in a position that you can't believe me. I'm sorry that I put you here in a place that you have all of these doubts. And then later, when she calms down, then you go and try to see if you can have a more calm conversation about it.
And finally, clarification on confidence. When I'm telling him how something is affecting me, he defends how great he's doing because he's doing so much work and is doing his best. So that invalidates anything I say.
That's not confidence. That's not what we're talking about here. Again, that's what first and foremost, if you're trying to tell him something that's bothering you, and he goes to, hey, wait, you know what? I don't know why you're upset. I'm doing all this work. I mean, I don't, you're the one now who has the problem. You know what? That's gaslighting. Okay. It's minimizing, it's blame shifting. And instead, you have to stay away from that. The confidence comes from the fact that I know I am transforming, that I am changing, that I'm becoming a different man. I don't need to be sitting here and telling you that. In fact, I don't ever want to tell you that. I want you to see it, and I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me that I'm different. Because coming from me means nothing. It means nothing. Hey, don't you love this new guy that I am now? Meaningless. So anyway, that's where I be.
Thank you both for all of this and for hanging in there with all the questions too. Thanks to everyone who was joining us. The video will be posted today on Seeking Integrity. I'll get it done. I'll make sure that gets posted today.
Yeah.
So great job. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank Drew. I really appreciate you. I
Yeah,
love you,
it was
brother.
great.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Tammy.